Gospel, after the resurrection, Jesus was appearing for the third time to the disciples. And if we try to imagine what kind of mood they were in, it sounds like they were in a very somber mood. It is as though the mission has failed. Because their charismatic leader, whom they have been following, whom they have seen teaching and healing and performing miracles, was not there anymore with them. And they wanted to go back to their former lives. Simon Peter was the first one, the one who was always ready to follow. The one who always promised that he will be there with his master was the first one to decide to go back to his former life, to his fishing business. And the others also followed him, because they did not know what to do anymore. So at least to go back to the former life and to do the work in order to continue to meet the end. And it is at this lowest point of their journey that the Lord appears to them. And they have given up so much they couldn't even recognize him. But he appears to them and he enters into dialogue with them, asking them how the business was. Were you able to catch fish? They say no. But he continues to dialogue with them and instructs them. But surprisingly, not knowing to whom they were listening to, they follow his instructions. And they became successful. And it goes on that he decided to share a meal with them, to remind them that he's always present with them when they are gathered in his name to break the bread. And then he wanted to establish that special relationship with Peter. And he enters into dialogue with him again. He asks him, Simon Peter, do you love me more than any of these? What did he mean when he asked him, do you love me more than any of these? More than your friends, more than your family, more than your job. Do you love me more than all of these? Can you let go? Can you surrender? Can you go beyond your limitations, beyond your fear? Do you love me to that extent? Of course, Peter replies, yes, I love you. And for the second time, he asks him, and he replies again, yes, I love you, Lord. And the third time, when he asked him, it says Peter was grieved. Why was he grieved? Because he remembers. He remembers that he has failed. He remembers that he has denied him. It is not that he denied the divinity of Jesus, but he denied that relationship he had with him. He denied that friendship he developed with him. But now Jesus is reminding him not to make him feel guilty, but to let him overcome that guilt, to help him overcome that grief, first by making him aware. And Peter was aware. Because he was aware, he said, you know everything, Lord. You know I love you. You know that I have failed. You know that I have denied you. You know my fear. You know my limitations. You know my weaknesses. But at the same time, you know that the desire I have to follow you. You know that the desire that I want to witness you. You know everything. This is a very powerful encounter. Recognizing his limitations and at the same time recognizing his desire. And Jesus wanted to restore that relationship with him because he knew Peter. Despite his limitations, despite his weakness, he knew that Peter had a good heart. He needed help. He needed to be healed. He needed to be restored. He needed to be confirmed, not for himself, not to be a successful leader, but to be his representative, to be his vicar. And once he was able to recognize that, Jesus gave him that responsibility. He used to tell him that he will make him fisher of men. But now, the good shepherd himself is entrusting him that responsibility to be a shepherd like him. He is empowering him with that authority to be at the service. Each time the responsibility that he was giving him, what was he telling him? Feed my lambs, tend my flock. So he's giving him that responsibility to be at the service of others, not for himself. He is giving him that responsibility to look after others, to be the shepherd of his flock. And once Peter was able to accept that responsibility, as we heard in the first reading in the Acts of the Apostles, he was bold enough, he was courageous enough with the other disciples to continue to proclaim Jesus, to show that loving power of God, because he has experienced that pure love, a love that helps one to overcome the fear and all obstacles, and a love that will enable one to give himself unconditionally to others. And that's what happened to Peter, and that's what happened to the other disciples also. And throughout the history of our church, that is what has happened. All those who entrusted themselves to Jesus by saying, you know I love you. But before that, we have to be able to listen. Jesus telling us, asking us the question, do you love me? And are we able to say like Peter, you know everything about me, Lord. You know my secrets. You know my life. You know my success. You know my failure. You know everything. And you know I love you. Once we are able to say that, we are able to surrender all ourselves, all our wishes, all our desires to Him. And then we will be entrusted with whatever responsibility He wants us to do. So it is again a call for us today. He is asking us to follow Him like He did to the others. Follow me. He is calling each one of us by our names. And He is asking us to recognize that He loves us. And in return, He wants us to show Him that love also by surrendering ourselves to Him. He is not asking us to be experts, but He is asking us to be trustful, to trust in Him, to trust in His saving power, to allow Him to mold us, to fashion us, so that we too, like the others, to be His followers and to be His messengers, bringing peace, bringing light in this world of darkness to all those who need it. So as we continue to celebrate this mystery, let us surrender ourselves to the Lord, and let us hear Him telling us, "Follow me." And let us allow ourselves to say, "Jesus, I love you. You know everything. Despite all, I love you and I want to follow you." Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit.